Today in class you were introduced to the bristle brush, and the bristle brush, just like every other brush, is a style of brush you can utilize to create paths and kind of designs in Illustrator. So I've given you written instructions here just to help this be a little bit easier, as well as a shape of an apple already drawn out for you. Now the first thing we want to do is make a bristle brush. So I've given you some really good options for the kind of brush you should start with. So in order to do this, let's open up our brush panel. Let's hit that add new brush, and this time we're going to hit bristle. And I would highly recommend using these settings to start out with: a round fan for some diameter, and then the rest of these settings. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to be doing is kind of like building this apple shade by shade, and we're going to need to use a different technique. This is just something to help us out. We're going to do something called draw inside. In order to use draw inside, first we have to select the shape we want to draw inside of. What this will do is whatever we draw next will only be drawn inside of that shape. It's like a live shape builder that we don't have to worry about doing hundreds of times. Now to access this, it's down on the bottom of your panel, this little symbol here. We're going to hit draw inside. Now you'll see that it is working because it gives you like this little dotted line around the apple. Next thing we want to do is pull up our swatches panel. I've kind of prepped all the colors you're going to need for this apple for you. So let's go to Window Swatches. You remember that swatches are just a whole bunch of colors for us. So I have my brush here, my swatches here. I'm going to select the brush I made, and I'm going to start with like the light yellow and start drawing some of the lighter part of the apple that I'm seeing over here. And I'm using the real apple as a reference. So I'll start with the lightest yellow. I'm going to take my paintbrush tool, make sure I'm activated on that bristle brush I created, and start making some lines. I'm going to layer this because I made the opacity of this brush kind of light on purpose. So it was more about how you layered, and really it's kind of hard to see while you're painting. So what you're going to have to do quite often is right here on the right where it says Apple Original, you're going to have to hit this little visibility signal. This is going to let you know like how it's actually looking. But it's also good to have those colors there just to make sure you're actually building them up. Okay? Now we're going to do this with each color. We're going to keep going to darker colors and darker colors until we've built an apple. I highly recommend just keep putting on the real apple and being like, okay, well this is where there's the lightest part of the apple, but now it's getting a little darker, so let me just go up a color and blend that over it and keep laying right that way. It looks like it gets a little darker on the side. Right, again, I'm going to hide it and see what I'm actually building here. This is meant to look nice and smooth, so if you have to layer it quite a few times, that's totally normal. And I'm going to keep going darker in color and really trying to match where I see the darkness of the apple here with what I'm painting. And because I have the draw inside, only inside the shape is being edited as I draw. So I spent about like 20 minutes just really layering. I even added some of the little flecks that I saw. What you really want is just a gradation of darker reds to lighter ones, and with the highlight, because in the real photo, if we hide this, you see that there's like lighter parts of the apple and darker parts. Now the next thing we want to do is make the stem. So to make the stem, it's quite simple. You're going to draw the outline of the stem with the pen tool. So I'm actually going to hide this, and I'm going to make a new layer. I just think it makes this so much easier if you make a new layer. And I'm going to trace the stem with my pen tool real quick. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to do the same kind of deal and use the draw inside and paint with, the browns that I've given you in the swatches. So I'm going to select a shape, hit draw inside, take my bristle brush, and I'm going to make my brush much smaller, like this tiny small one. You can make a whole bunch of different brushes for this. I actually recommend that. And I'm going to just create this stem. Okay, once you're done coloring, you're going to want to take out the stroke of your shape just because you don't really need it anymore. So I'm going to remove the stroke by triple clicking on my shape and just getting rid of the stroke here. You can do the same thing for the apple. So I'm going to turn on this apple again. I'm going to triple click on the apple and just remove the stroke. That way it actually looks like an apple.